how do GMOs affect the environment? Because you know they do. They certainly do. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere because I'm going to cover all of that. Hey, this is Lance McGowan, the Tropical Smoothie Guy, and we're going to cover how GMOs affect the environment because there's a lot of chemicals being used, and that goes into the soil, that goes into the water supply with runoff and all that other stuff, and people eat it, we eat it, animals eat it. It's toxic, it's no good, and then that waste goes back into the sewage system, and it's just, I'm going to cover all that in the next section.
Hey, this is Lance McGowan, the Tropical Smoothie Guy, and how do GMOs impact the environment? I mean, we hear a lot about potential health concerns and all that jazz, but what about Mother Earth? Well, more than 80% of all GMOs grown worldwide are engineered for herbicide tolerance, and the use of toxic herbicides like Roundup has increased 16 times since GMOs were introduced. Is the long term effectiveness of this stuff at any point in question if you have to use 16 times more? Well, I mean, there may be more landmass, coverage, so maybe they're using it because they're covering more landmass, but still, I've seen lots of other studies where they're using more on the crops and there's all this resistance build up from the bugs and the weeds, which means they have to use more, which means it's more toxic. Anyways, GMO crops are responsible for the birth of herbicide resistant super weeds and super bugs. They have little capes because they're just like Superman. They're almost indestructible by normal things, which can only be killed with more toxic chemicals like 2,4-D, a major ingredient in Agent Orange, and Agent Orange is outlawed because of all the negative health effects. I mean, you can just Google Agent Orange health side effects or health effects, and you'll see tons of people who have all these birth defects and deformities and stuff like that. It's crazy, but we're spraying stuff like that on our foods because our foods are genetically modified and can quote unquote take it like a man, because they're genetically modified to resist all that stuff. But it's still no bueno. It's toxic when we eat those things. And so, whether, a lot of people are like, hey, are GMOs harmful? Well, their effect on human health is still up in question, but certainly the toxic chemicals they spray on the GMOs, oh my gosh, those are pretty much one and the same. I mean, if you're going to have GMOs, you're typically going, especially foods, you're typically going to have some type of pesticide or herbicide residue on it because bugs and weeds are the main things that affect crop yield. So, I mean, yeah, like environmental things like water and sunlight and stuff like that is important and nutrients in the ground, but they're not creating GMOs for that. They're creating it for bugs and weeds. All right, so birth defects, skin discoloration, and immune system issues can result from the chemicals used on GMO crops, but these new organisms can't be recalled back. That means, the soy, the corn, the cotton, all the other stuff I did videos on, all these major crops, they can't be taken back. There's no takesies backsies because once they're released into the environment, they are in the food supply. They're everywhere. They become a part of the ground and they become a part of future generations of those crops, which is the main issue, which is probably one main reason why all these other countries, especially Europe, have banned these because they don't want them in. Because once they're in, the floodgates are open. On top of that, there's all these toxic chemicals that are no good for your health. All right, so the next steps are to subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch the next video so you can learn more.
Anytime you're using synthetic or toxic chemicals on plants, those plants have all that going into the soil or when it rains into runoff and streams, and then if we eat it, it's going to our bodies, and then when we use the restroom, number one or number two, it's coming out and going back into the sewage system, goes through treatment plant. I mean, we live in a world that is just kind of cycling through and filtering through all this junk and crap, and the more chemicals we introduce, it takes a toll on the people and the environment, and people can get birth defects and other things. And you may be like, well, that doesn't happen where I'm from, but in other countries it's huge where they have less environmental regulations, like China and India and other places like that. And these companies really, go into these areas because they're low cost, and the countries may not hold those companies accountable because they want the income that that company provides and the jobs they provide. So there's this conflict of interest where the country wants the companies because they provide jobs and income for the people, and the companies really don't have to be held accountable because they're just there because it's cheaper, right? And so whatever happens to the people, oh, it wasn't our fault, like, or, it's hard to have causality and figure out what really happened. But we know that toxic chemicals can affect the brain, it can affect your immune system, your digestion, it can have birth defects. There's so many things that we do know, and that's why they've outlawed Agent Orange, but yet we're using some of those same ingredients and creating shaky, rocky videos, right? It's just affecting the video too. Actually, I just hit the video, but I was getting upset. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can watch more videos like this one, and check out the links in the description box below so you can get you learn on too about GMOs, maltodextrin, and everything else in between, which is not really anything except for corn. So anyways.